And bam, bam, bam. Welcome back to Nando Talk, a super uber quick Nando Talk. Two things we're going to talk about today: defensive coordinator, whether we're going to go for a veteran like Vic Fangio, whether we're going to go for a young upper side guy, more upside guy like Sean Desai, and everything in between. We're also going to be talking a little bit what that means for the defense. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Tua Tagovailoa news as well, with Tom Brady coming into town, which truly means nothing, but more on that in a second, because I forgot to say hello. What is up, and welcome everyone back to Nando Talk. Very hectic, very busy. Finally finished a lot of work, but we're good to rock. I wanted to get a quick Talk It Out Tuesday out. More of a Miami Dolphins monologue, just me prattling on for 15, 20 minutes, giving us a quick rundown on some things that happened today, some things that I'm hoping to expect to see. So without further ado, Tom Brady visited Miami Country Day High School, and well, yeah, we'll talk about the Dolphins stuff, the Tom Brady stuff first, and then the defensive coordinator. All right, so resetting, no notes, just brain. Miami Dolphins monologue. Tom Brady visited Miami Country Day High School, a local high school here in Miami, where his kids are supposedly about to be enrolled. Giselle and the kids live here in Miami. They've got a house over here. And so, of course, it is fed into the rumor mill. Is Tom Brady visiting Miami Country Day High because he's going to be coming to the Miami Dolphins? And let me tell you, honestly, guys, if we're going to be playing this game all offseason, if we're going to take every single little piece of news and try to extrapolate that into, oh, this means that, oh, quarterback X player Z is coming to the Dolphins. Let's remember that Miami is a massive city, plenty to do. Okay. How many times do we see players at clubs, at parties, at basketball games? And it doesn't mean that they are coming here to the Dolphins. I get it. I think that Tom Brady to the Dolphins is probably a potential option. But to just simply connect the dot and say he is visiting his kid's high school, boom, he's going to be coming here. Nah, not necessarily, guys. Let's remember that, Tom is probably just going to be a good dad. He's going to see where his kid's going to go to school, regardless if he plays here for the Raiders, for the Patriots, for the Dolphins, for the Bucks, whatever it may be. Tom Brady's going to do his due diligence on his future kid's high school. Duh. But further on that, it's too early to tell if that's just a father doing due diligence or whether it's us actually going for Tom Brady. And honestly, I think Tua Tagovailoa should be our starting quarterback. I have faith in the kid, and after what we've seen this year, we know it's not talent, it's health. But that being said, that health, that availability is reason to concern, and it is reason to say that if we can get an upgrade, it's a more proven commodity, something more stable and ready to rock. I understand with the Miami Dolphins doing that. What I do not want to see is us trading so many assets, so many young players, so many draft picks that it's going to create more holes on a roster that already needs things to be filled in. That's why Tom Brady, honestly, wouldn't be too bad of an option because he'll be hitting the free agency market in that world. And then we just have to sign him. He won't command too much money. Maybe we'll do a little behind the deal, behind the doors, wink, wink. That was a terrible wink, but you know what I'm saying? Like maybe Stephen Ross offers Brady a little bit of ownership, and bada bing, bada bam, they're set to go on that part a little less money. But Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, those are guys you have to trade for and then field those massive contracts as well, which just means we're going to lose players, we're going to lose draft picks and create more holes on a team that still needs to fill out depth at O-line, at the secondary, that still needs some help at running back and middle linebacker, that would still like some depth all around on this roster, honestly, because we saw what injuries can do real quick, turn this from talent to very, very troubling times. And Tom, he would bring some veterans. Like there is merit to that point. The only thing scary there is that he's going to be 46, 47 years old, so old. I get he had a great statistical year this year, and 2 years ago he won the Super Bowl. But at some point, Father Time is going to collect. And I know that it'd be the most Dolphins thing in the world for us to sign Tom Brady, the greatest of all time. And then that's when his arm finally starts to give out. That'd be a damn shame and the most Dolphins thing possible. So I say when there's so many things to talk about, so many things to focus on, so many things that are not quarterback, why spend so much energy on that? The Dolphins have already said that Josh Boyer, McDaniel have already put their voice behind saying that they want Tua to rock with it. I think we should at the very minimum bring in a good backup like a Gardner Minshew, a guy who's young, who can compete, has upside, and can rock with it. There's talks of maybe getting a guy like Geno Smith, although that is, he had such a great year. I'm sure he wants to go for an actual starting job. Little stuff like that, we can make some moves that don't break the bank and that still allow us some flexibility to fix this team and to keep the studs that have already appeared on this Dolphins roster. And so one of the bigger moves, one of the more important things, and that's why it's so baffling that we're talking about quarterback still when we can talk about defensive coordinator. And if you wanted to skip ahead, I'll put a little timestamp here so you can skip ahead to defensive coordinator because I get it. Some people are tired about talking about quarterback. So am I. We have a defensive coordinator, literally a coaching position available on this team that is going to dictate how well this Dolphins team does. I get it. Quarterback is obviously one of the most important positions in sports, but defensive coordinator, especially when our head coach is an offensive minded guy who's literally his sole experience in the NFL is just behind offensive gurus and working his way up those ranks. Okay. He doesn't exactly have too much connection on the defensive side of the ball. Magic Mike has revamped the offense, but clearly at times the defense was a mixed bag. There were times where it was performing, firing all cylinders, and there were times where it would just wither away and just let up points where it couldn't get off a third down. There were times where we couldn't generate pass rush to save the life for us. There was times where Jalen Phillips seemed like every single play he was getting the QB's face. We've got the talent. It seemed to be a coaching thing. So it's fine. We're moving on. Okay. Vic Fangio, guys like that, Vic Fangio, Mike Zimmer, Todd Bowles, they give you a big upside. Guys who were former head coaches who can now be thrust and brought in quickly to revamp a coaching room, revamp a defensive side of the ball that just needs to be reorganized, reshuffled around, and re-energized to regain that form that it's had in years past. The talent is there. If anything, injuries aside, there are even more talent on this Dolphins defense. We just need to tap into it and activate it. Now, speaking of tapping it in and activating it, it makes sense why the Dolphins could also opt to go for Vic Fangio disciple, Vic Fangio Jr., a guy like Sean Desai, stuff like that. I've even heard of like Chris, I'm totally butchering this guy's name. He's a San Francisco 49ers defensive line coordinator, Chris Korchik. I don't know. Chris K. That's what we're going to call him. Okay. Chris Korchik. I don't know. Chris K. But guys like that in Desai, guys who have experience at other positions on the defense, maybe not necessarily actually being a defensive coordinator, but at the very least D-line, DB, stuff like that could work its way into, hey, the Dolphins have tapped into another young, bright mind who's going to be in the NFL for a long time. It would be pretty cool to pair up a guy like Mike McDaniel and Sean Desai, two young guys who are both under 40 years old. I think they're both 39 actually, and they'll be able to rock and roll for a long time together, well until Sean Desai would eventually get sniped as a coach, but that'd be a good problem to have for a long time to come. Is it actually going to happen? And that's a whole nother story, I, for one, would prefer a veteran, a guy like Fangio. And I said Todd Bowles, Mike Zimmer, maybe even Lovie Smith, guys like that who have been head coaches before, who know what it's like to command a locker room, to have respect, who can maybe assist Mike McDaniel a little bit, who's still younger, who still needs some time in the league. It would be nice to see the Dolphins pair up Mike McDaniel with such a sharp mind that has experience. I think of it almost like when Sean McVay got Wade Phillips from the Broncos. Wade Phillips had that crazy Super Bowl year, the Super Bowl win with the Broncos. Gary Kubiak retires, and then Wade Phillips goes to LA. He goes with the Rams, and he really pairs well with Sean McVay, who's a young up-and-coming coach at the time. He goes to the Super Bowl, and it was a 13-3 loss. Sean McVay's offense didn't appear, but Wade Phillips' defense definitely did the best they could, man. 13 freaking points in a Super Bowl is ridiculous. Just so happens their offense only scored 3. But it was until that moment for that run, it was beautiful to see that young, bright offensive mind and that wily, smart, savvy veteran, proven commodity in Wade Phillips, who's now actually coaching, I think, in the XFL or the AFL, something like that. My guy is still, or arena football. Wade Phillips is a beast. He's still kicking it. He's still coaching it, and that's awesome. There's even talks of maybe Wade Phillips coming to the Dolphins defensive coordinator, which would be crazy coming back to the NFL like that. But back to a little bit more to reality. I do want a veteran like Fangio. Fangio would be my number one option. It's a name that's on a lot of our Dolphins' tongues right now. There's a lot of talk about him, and we have not actually requested an interview. Granted, the Eagles are still currently in the playoffs. They're going to the NFC Championship. They might be playing in the Super Bowl. I could see why Fangio would be like, I don't need to necessarily pounce on this. I could see why the Dolphins are giving it their ample space. He is a defensive consultant, so it's not a coordinator where we're banned or barred from interviewing them if the team stops it. We don't have to request. Fangio and the Dolphins can just do it. So I'd love to see that happen. Whether it may probably have to wait till the Eagles playoff run ends, whether that's in the NFC Championship, whether that's in the Super Bowl, who knows? But if Fangio comes to the Dolphins, I think it'd be wonderful to be able to start filling out those linebacker coaches, those assistant linebacker coach, a safety coach that we also fired along with Josh Boyer, and just finally rework around this defense because Fangio will still bring that 4-3 scheme. Like we will have the personnel. That's why I think we just need to reshape and just re-energize this D. We've got the talent there. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, freaking Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer. Oh my God, Raekwon Davis. And you're still talking about guys like if we bring Ingram back, that'd be awesome. Such a talented front right there. To be able to get pressure at all times. I know Fangio would be absolutely drooling to work with that, especially since he was with the Broncos from 2019 to 2021 when Chubb was on the team. Like that'd be gorgeous. And I would trust Fangio to fill out that defensive room with quality veterans at coaching and on the field as well. That is what we would need to see from the Miami Dolphins. It would be beautiful. And he, as a former head coach himself, he could obviously console and give a little bit of advice to Mike McDaniel at times, who is only entering his second year as a head coach. He's finding his way. It was another mixed bag, honestly. There were times where you could see that mystic Mike, that magical energy, and other times there was a bit of a rough going. There was definitely some learning curves and growing pains. Having a veteran defensive coordinator instead of someone who has to learn on the fly would go wonders for that. Okay. I know the Dolphins have interviewed Anthony Campanelli. All respect to you, boss, because you currently do work for the Dolphins. I think he's a linebacker coach. Buddy. Campanelli. I hope you stay as our linebacker coach or whatever coaching staff position you already have on the Dolphins. I do not want you as a defensive coordinator. Hopefully, we do go for those veteran guys. However, I still see why we could go for a guy like, again, I don't know the San Fran guy's name correctly, the San Francisco defensive line coach. I'm going to call him Chris K. I think it's Chris Korachek, something terribly hard for my Hispanic ass to say. So Chris K. Okay. A guy like that, repairing him with Mike McDaniel, a little bit more San Fran action. That'd be nice. I understand where they'd be coming from. And I understand why Mike McDaniel might love to see that. And there's even talks that when D'Amico Ryans goes to be a head coach soon, because he's probably the top head coaching candidate right now, that maybe Chris K could be promoted to be the defensive coordinator for San Francisco. So if he's qualified enough for that position, I'd be more than happy to have him already on the Dolphins. But he does have to learn. And obviously San Fran's benefit would be that he gets to just plug and play into their system, keep that continuity. Whereas for the Dolphins, he'd have to implement his system, implement more of his views. Now, they would align with McDaniel a lot, which that harmony would be awesome. But at what cost? I would rather, if we're going to implement a new system, I want a tried and true, proven guy knowing how to call those calls, knowing how to make that scheme, knowing how to relate to the players at all levels, and just rock and roll with it, man. The Dolphins have a lot of great coaches, a lot of great guys, but what we don't necessarily always have is a lot of veterans. So with a lot of promising minds that we have, we're going to eventually have to promote them to keep them. So at chances where we can get a veteran, I'm down. And even if Fangio only stays for a year or two and then he gets repicked as a head coach, that at least gives our young defensive minds a little bit more tutelage, a little bit more training, a little bit more time to repair, and maybe they can step it up. Maybe you bring in a guy like Fangio and he can train up a guy like Sam Madison. My days, man. You have Sam Madison as a future defensive coordinator for the Dolphins. Talk about promising, bright mind, talking about promoting from within, talking about someone who wants the job, who would have that fire for it. Oh, baby. If Sam had been developed enough this year, we could have promoted him already, and we would have kept Pat Surtain as a DB coach instead of losing him to FSU. Good luck to you over there. Hope for you for the best, Pat, but that is a shame. Now, there is a crazy world, and as we start to wrap it up, because this is going to be a little shorter Nando talk to make sure I get it off for Tuesday. Sorry. While there is a chance of us going for Fangio or Desai, what about a world where we go for Vic Fangio and get Sean Desai? Now, that would be absolutely awesome for many reasons. Obviously, like I said, Vic Fangio as a Dolphins defensive coordinator, he'd be that vet. He'd be able to fill out that room beautifully and get everything nice and going, tip-top shape, ready to go for the season, be step and step with McDaniel, and allow him to, allow McDaniel to use a little bit of Vic Fangio's knowledge, allow him to grow as a head coach and use a little bit of his experience. But if we get Vic Fangio and Sean Desai, if we get the teacher and the student, Vic Fangio and Fangio Jr., oh, baby, watch out. Fangio would still do everything that we just said, that he would still be that veteran guy to totally fill it out. But in the event that Fangio eventually leaves, he is 64, 65, I think. He might be wanting a head coach job again. Maybe he wants to move on. Who knows? Eventually, when he does leave, he will have had prepared Sean Desai even further and even implemented more into his brain. While they've got that scheme perfectly down that Fangio's laid out, once he leaves, Sean Desai just carries up that torch and rock and rolls with it. That would be absolutely gorgeous to see. Bowleg, what's up, boss? Just give the job to someone who's already here, Sam Madison. Bowleg, hey, man, I would be down. I would have thought that if that was to happen, I think they would have, maybe they'll interview Sam Madison still, but I think they would have probably just fired Boyer, promoted from within, and then kept Pat Surtain if we thought Sam Madison was ready for that role. And I would have loved to see that, having Sam and Pat on the squad, or even just Sam as defensive coordinator. That'd be awesome still. But as long as we still have Madison at defensive back coach and we're not at risk to lose him, I don't see us promoting him yet. Although down the line, I do think that, which is why I'm down for a veteran defensive coordinator to be able to coach up Sam Madison a tad bit more. Whether it's a year or two or a couple years, that extra seasoning will go a long way for Sam to be his full form when he takes up the reins finally. Because I do think that's a future Dolphins defensive coordinator right there. Great point. But until then, if we get Fangio and Desai, Fangio teaching Desai and Sam Madison is a great problem to have. Fangio, I keep saying this guy's name. We can still bring a couple other veterans, but I do think that is the guy we are truly taking an aim at, man. It will be absolutely wonderful to see what the Dolphins do once we get our new defensive coordinator. Expect us to sign a couple coaches real quick, reshape that coaching room, and then get prepared to make moves on defense. This offseason we'll be getting new veterans, obviously guys like Duke Riley, Landon Roberts, who are more role players, in our linebacking core. Players like that, they may or may not make the cut, and we'll see our veteran defensive coordinator opt for new veterans, new guys who fit more his system. Again, we want Fangio because that's 4-3. He could do a lot more with some continuity with the personnel we already have, but I do think there's going to be a slight shakeup. Boyer and McDaniel said they don't want a big one, but I do think there's going to be a slight shakeup coming up in the Dolphins' future, and it all starts at defensive coordinator. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. This is a quick Nando talk. I'll put up some chapters right now, and tomorrow is Wakata Wednesday, a much longer chat. I'll be going live at 1:30 to 3 o'clock, so an hour and a half. So that'll be a fun time. Tune in if you want to go for a panel. It's just a quick video to talk about the Brady situation, Miami Country Day, talk about Tua. I hope we all enjoyed. Bada bing, bada bam. I'll catch you next time.